My name is Emily Hayes, and I was 30 when my mother called to cancel my birthday 3 days before the party. Not because of any real emergency, but because my younger sister Claire had staged another crisis right as attention was finally supposed to be on me. "We're canceling your birthday. Your sister needs us," Mom said the second I picked up. Behind me sat unopened wine, 40 place cards, a paid restaurant deposit, a booked photographer. My father texted, "You're the strong one. You'll understand." That sentence had erased every milestone I'd ever earned. I'd half expected this. Days earlier, Claire had called my party excessive, then suddenly claimed she was falling apart. So instead of arguing, I donated the reservation to charity, packed a bag, emptied the account my parents could access, and drove to the lake house my grandfather Walter had left behind. Walter had died 8 months earlier. Mom always called the property worthless and pushed to sell it, stalling whenever I asked to see the estate papers. When I arrived, a man introduced himself as Harold Bennett, Walter's attorney. "Your grandfather predicted your mother would find a reason you couldn't celebrate your birthday," he said. Inside, Harold showed me the will. Walter had left me the lake house, 32 acres, and controlling interest in his development company. Not Mom, not Claire. Millions in assets. He'd rejected a resort's buyout, wanting the land turned into an artist's retreat instead, something I'd dreamed about as a kid painting beside him. Full control transferred to me at 30. Until then, Mom had held temporary authority. She'd used it. Nearly $400,000 had been siphoned from the estate under labels like maintenance and legal fees, most of it funding Claire's rent, debts, and a wedding venue for an engagement that didn't exist. Walter had caught the withdrawals before he died and rewritten the trust so I'd gain control directly, certain Mom would otherwise manipulate me into signing everything away. A note from him read, "They taught you that strength means surrendering what's yours. It doesn't." The canceled birthday suddenly made sense. Mom needed me distracted the exact week control transferred, and Claire's meltdown gave the family cover. A box of my old childhood artwork held one more envelope, marked for me. Inside, Walter detailed years of quiet theft. My education fund drained to cover Claire's expulsion. My design portfolio account closed because it made her jealous. My gallery show sacrificed to her fake breakup crisis. In an email to Walter, Mom wrote plainly, "Madison can recover from disappointment. Jenna cannot." Favoritism as financial policy. I told Harold to freeze every account, alert the banks, and preserve every message coming in. I wasn't calling the police yet, but I was done being everyone's consequence. She began crying. What am I supposed to do? It was the question she'd dodged her whole life. Get a job, sell what you own, talk honestly to investigators, stop turning every consequence into someone else's emergency. You sound heartless. No, unavailable. I blocked the number. Months later, the civil case exposed falsified expenses and unauthorized loans. Mom surrendered the family home, liquidated investments, and returned what she could. Not everything, but enough to protect the lake from creditors. A separate criminal inquiry continued. Dad filed for divorce. Claire moved into a rented room and took an office job, telling relatives I'd destroyed the family out of jealousy. Some believed her. Others finally admitted they'd seen the favoritism all along. I stopped chasing anyone's approval. The pattern had ended. That was what mattered. At the lake, construction began on Walter's artist's retreat. We restored the house, turned an old workshop into studios, and started a scholarship for adults who'd abandoned creative work because their families called it impractical. I named the first residency Strong One, Not because strength means endless sacrifice, but because it sometimes starts with refusing the role you were assigned. 10 years after my canceled birthday, the property was unrecognizable from the neglected place Mom once wanted to sell. 6 cabins, 2 studios, a community kitchen, an exhibition hall over the shoreline. I became director and returned to painting, portraits built from altered family photos, missing figures, empty chairs where someone should have been celebrated. My first exhibition was called "The Strong One is Not Invisible." Hundreds came. My family once canceled a room of 40 people over Claire's breakup. A decade later, strangers crossed state lines for work I'd nearly given up. Mom didn't come. She avoided prison through a plea deal, restitution, probation, monitoring, community service. She lost the house, her charity seats, most of her friends. She worked part-time at an insurance office and for years wrote me letters blaming Walter, Dad, and me for exaggerating ordinary sacrifices. I never answered. Dad visited twice a year, polite, distant. He'd gone to counseling, accepted that apologies don't restore access. Claire changed slower, drifting through jobs, still insisting I'd stolen her inheritance, until an investigator showed her the redirected education funds, and she realized she hadn't been denied an inheritance, she'd consumed mine. Therapy followed. Eventually, a letter with no excuses. "I knew Mom was taking something meant for you. I let myself believe you could survive it. I was jealous, and I used being fragile as power. I'm sorry." I kept it. I didn't reply. On the 10th anniversary, Harold called, retired now, but still holding one sealed instruction from Walter. A letter and a video meant for all 4 of us, released that day. Participation was voluntary. I nearly said no. The word surprised us both. She looked out at the water. "I used to think you had everything because you didn't need anyone. I needed people. I learned they wouldn't come." "I know." We stood there in silence. "Do you think we'll ever be sisters again?" she asked. "We are sisters. That doesn't automatically make us close." She took the answer without tears or argument, without twisting it into proof I was cruel. That was the first real sign she might be changing. I didn't invite her back into my life. Reconciliation isn't a prize for finally seeing the damage you caused. Trust comes back through years of consistent choices. Sometimes it never comes back at all. But I no longer hated her. Hatred would have meant still building my life around her. Mom left before the celebration started. She sent one last message through Harold claiming Walter had poisoned the family against her. I deleted it. Some people call boundaries punishment because they'd gotten comfortable when you had none. Others insist exposing betrayal does more damage than the betrayal itself. But silence had only ever protected Mom, not our family. Sacrifice enabled Claire, it never healed her. Dad's passivity bought a temporary peace while letting real harm continue. The truth didn't destroy anything except the arrangement that depended on everyone pretending not to notice. When it came time to cut the cake, the room sang. I looked around at the artists, students, friends, and neighbors who'd built this place with me. No one was watching the door for a sister who might steal the moment. No one expected me to hand over my celebration to prove I was strong. I closed my eyes and made a wish, not for revenge, because the consequences had already delivered that on their own. Mom had lost her reputation she valued over honesty. Claire had lost the safety net that kept her dependent. Dad had lost the peace he'd bought with silence. All 3 had lost the future Walter prepared for them, simply because they tried to take mine. My wish was that everyone raised as the strong one would learn what Walter taught me. Strength isn't a license for your family to neglect you. Love doesn't mean funding someone else's irresponsibility, covering for their betrayal, or keeping an empty chair at your own party. Sometimes leaving isn't abandonment. Sometimes it's the first honest thing you've ever done. After everyone left, I walked down to the water alone. The retreat's lights spread across the lake toward the shoreline Mom almost sold. 10 years earlier, I'd arrived with one suitcase, certain I'd lost my family over a canceled birthday. In truth, that cancellation had just exposed how the whole family ran, on my obedience. I hadn't lost them that night. I'd stopped losing myself. The next morning, I framed Walter's note and hung it in the entrance hall for every new resident to see. Strength does not mean surrendering what is yours. Underneath it, I added a line of my own. And being family does not exempt anyone from the consequences of taking it.